Your legs are lying to you right now. Not the kind of lie you can argue with. The kind that whispers, "This is just aging," while something far more serious quietly takes root underneath. If your legs have felt heavier lately, shakier on the stairs, slower to respond when you stand, and tired before you've even gone anywhere, your body is sending you a signal most people completely ignore until it's too late to ignore it. And the cruelest part? The causes are almost never what you expect. Most people assume weak legs are simply the cost of getting older. They sit down more. They push through less. They quietly start avoiding the things that used to be effortless: the evening walk, the flight of stairs, the grandchild asking to be picked up. They adapt. And while they adapt, the real problem grows. By the time a fall happens, by the time a doctor uses words like mobility loss or progressive weakness, the window to act has narrowed dramatically. You do not have to be inside that story, but only if you understand what is actually happening and why it is happening to your body specifically. By the time we reach reason number 1, you will see your legs and the health signals they are giving you in a way you never have before. Stay with every word of this. What comes next could change the entire trajectory of how you move through the rest of your life. There is a particular kind of fear that arrives without a name. You are standing at the bottom of a staircase you have climbed 1,000 times, and something hesitates. Not a pain exactly, not a stumble. Something more like a quiet loss of certainty, a moment where your body and your memory of your body no longer quite match. That feeling is not random. That feeling is data. And most people who experience it spend years dismissing it before they ever think to ask what it is actually trying to tell them. The human leg is one of the most architecturally complex systems in the body. It is not simply muscle wrapped around bone. It is an intricate conversation happening continuously between your circulatory system, your nervous system, your spine, your mineral balance, and the muscle tissue that ties all of it together. When any single part of that conversation breaks down, the signal shows up in your legs first because they are furthest from the heart, most exposed to gravity, and most dependent on every other system working correctly. Which means that when your legs start to weaken, they are rarely telling you something about your legs. They are telling you something about your body. Let us start with the reason most people already suspect but consistently underestimate: muscle loss. The scientific name is sarcopenia, and it begins earlier than almost anyone realizes. Most people imagine muscle loss as something that happens in old age, visible, dramatic, obvious. The reality is far quieter and far more insidious. Sarcopenia begins in your 30s. By the time you are 60, if you have not been deliberately counteracting it, the process has already been running for 3 decades. After 60, it accelerates. The muscle fibers themselves become fewer in number and smaller in size. The legs, particularly the quadriceps in the front of your thighs and the calves, begin to lose their structural density. You might notice your trousers fitting differently. Your thighs are looking thinner than they once did. A heaviness and fatigue that arrives faster than it should. These are not aesthetic concerns. These are functional ones. When your quadriceps lose mass, standing up from a chair requires more effort. When your calves weaken, balance becomes less automatic and more effortful. When both happen together, the risk of a fall does not increase gradually, it multiplies. But here is what almost nobody tells you about sarcopenia, and this is the part that changes everything. It is not irreversible. It is not even inevitable in the way most people assume. The body, even in its 70s and 80s, retains the capacity to build muscle in response to the right stimulus. Not the same capacity as at 30, but enough. Enough to reclaim function. Enough to restore confidence. The exercises do not need to be intense. Chair squats, where you sit and stand repeatedly using only your leg strength and minimal arm assistance. Leg lifts performed while seated, keeping the muscles engaged without stressing the joints. Resistance bands looped around the thighs or ankles to add load without impact. 10 to 15 minutes a day, performed consistently, will begin to slow the loss and over weeks start to reverse it. Protein, particularly from lean meats, eggs, fish, and legumes, provides the raw material for muscle repair. The body cannot rebuild what it is not given the tools to rebuild. Feed the muscle. Move the muscle. The muscle will respond. That is not optimism. That is biology. And that is exactly where most people begin to understand something larger, that the legs are not the problem. The legs are the report card. The second reason is one that hides exceptionally well, precisely because its symptoms feel so ordinary: poor circulation. Peripheral artery disease. You have probably experienced it in small ways without ever giving it its proper name. A feeling of coldness in your feet when the rest of you is perfectly warm. A dull cramping in your calves that arrives after a few minutes of walking and fades almost immediately when you sit down. Legs that feel heavy and swollen by late afternoon. Feet that tingle or go numb after standing still for more than a few minutes. Each of these individually is easy to dismiss. Taken together, they describe a circulation system under serious strain. Peripheral artery disease develops when plaque accumulates along the walls of the arteries that supply blood to your legs. The arteries narrow, the blood flow diminishes. Your muscles, starved of the oxygen they need to function, begin to fatigue faster, cramp more readily, and recover more slowly. Over years, this process compounds. The same plaque buildup that restricts flow to your legs is almost certainly present in arteries elsewhere in the body, which is why untreated peripheral artery disease is directly linked to an elevated risk of heart attack and stroke. The legs, again, are the early warning system. The simplest intervention is also the most effective: movement. Not strenuous movement, deliberate, low-intensity movement. Walking, even short distances, stimulates the circulation and encourages the development of collateral blood vessels that can partially compensate for restricted arteries. Hydration matters enormously here. Dehydrated blood is thicker and slower moving. Reducing sodium intake reduces the fluid retention that creates pressure within the vascular system. Elevating the legs for 20 minutes at the end of the day allows gravity to assist venous return. Gentle foot and calf massage promotes local circulation in the extremities. These are simple interventions. Their cumulative effect, practiced consistently, is not simple at all. But the reason most people still struggle even when they walk and stay hydrated, and this part surprises almost everyone, often has nothing to do with blood flow or muscle mass at all. Nerve damage. Peripheral neuropathy. 1 in 3 adults over 60 lives with some degree of peripheral neuropathy, and a significant majority of them have no idea. The symptoms masquerade as so many other things. A burning sensation in the feet at night, dismissed as poor circulation. A tingling in the lower legs, attributed to sitting too long. A feeling sometimes described as walking on foam or wet sand, a disconnect between the foot and the ground that creates subtle but constant instability. Balance issues that appear to come from nowhere. Leg weakness that cannot be explained by muscle loss alone. The two most common drivers are prolonged elevated blood sugar and vitamin B12 deficiency. High blood sugar, even at levels that have not yet crossed into diagnosed diabetes, causes oxidative damage to the myelin sheath, the protective coating around nerve fibers. Once that sheath is damaged, the nerve's ability to transmit signals accurately is compromised. Signals from your legs to your brain signals about where your foot is, how hard it is pressing, what angle your ankle is at begin to arrive late, corrupted, or not at all. Balance becomes unreliable. Strength becomes unpredictable. Falls happen not because the muscles are too weak, but because the nervous system is no longer accurately reporting what the muscles are doing. B12 deficiency produces an eerily similar picture through a different mechanism. B12 is essential for maintaining the integrity of nerve tissue throughout the body. When levels drop, which happens easily in older adults because stomach acid production, required to absorb B12 from food, declines with age, nerve conduction suffers. The legs and feet are typically the first place the deficit manifests. Eggs, dairy products, fish, and leafy greens are among the richest dietary sources of B12. But for many people over 60, supplementation is necessary because dietary intake alone cannot compensate for reduced absorption. If you have been experiencing unexplained tingling, numbness, or that strange disconnected feeling underfoot, a simple blood test can tell you exactly where your B12 levels stand. Do not wait for symptoms to worsen before asking for it. Stay with me, because what comes next is something almost nobody connects to leg weakness, even though it is responsible for some of the most sudden and frightening episodes of leg instability that people experience. Your spine is not just the structural column of your body, it is the highway through which every nerve signal traveling to and from your legs must pass. The lumbar spine, the lower back, is the specific stretch of road most vulnerable to the kind of damage that disrupts leg function. A herniated disc at L4 or L5 does not just cause back pain. It can compress the sciatic nerve, sending pain, numbness, or weakness cascading down one or both legs. Spinal stenosis, a narrowing of the spinal canal that becomes more common with age, can produce a sensation of leg heaviness and cramping that worsens with walking and eases with sitting. Long-term postural habits, decades of sitting with a forward flexed spine, create chronic compression patterns that affect nerve root function even without a dramatic disc injury. The telltale signs are specific and recognizable once you know what to listen for. Pain that begins in the lower back and radiates down through the buttock and thigh. One leg that feels consistently weaker or less responsive than the other. Numbness or tingling that tracks a specific line down the leg rather than spreading diffusely. A feeling of the leg giving way without warning, not a slow weakening, but a sudden, brief failure of support. If any of these are familiar, the cause is upstream of the leg itself. The leg is healthy. The communication line is damaged. Gentle, consistent spinal mobility work can address early stages of this problem meaningfully. The knee-to-chest stretch, performed slowly and held with steady breathing, reduces compression along the lumbar spine. Seated spinal twists maintain rotational mobility that prevents the stiffening that accelerates stenosis. Avoiding prolonged sitting, or if sitting is unavoidable. Breaking it every 30 minutes with a brief walk or standing stretch reduces the cumulative pressure on spinal discs. A lumbar support cushion that maintains the natural inward curve of the lower spine during seated work can make a significant difference over time. The spine and the legs are one continuous system. What you do for one, you do for both. And now we arrive at the reason most people have never heard mentioned in connection with leg weakness, and yet, once you understand it, you will recognize it immediately in your own experience. Electrolyte imbalance, specifically deficiencies in magnesium and potassium. These two minerals are responsible for regulating the electrical activity that governs muscle contraction. Every time a muscle fiber contracts, it does so in response to an electrical signal that depends on the precise balance of these minerals inside and outside the cell. When that balance is disrupted, the signal goes wrong. Muscles contract when they should not, producing cramps. They fail to contract when they should, producing weakness and instability. They twitch unpredictably. They fatigue early and recover slowly. The night cramp, that sudden, searingly painful seizure of the calf or foot that wakes you from sleep, is almost universally related to magnesium or potassium deficiency, often compounded by dehydration. Diuretic medications, commonly prescribed for blood pressure, flush both minerals from the body as a side effect. Reduced dietary variety in older adults means fewer mineral-rich foods consumed. Reduced kidney efficiency with age means less precise regulation of what is retained and what is excreted. The result is a slow, invisible depletion that expresses itself as weakness, cramping, shakiness, and fatigue all in the legs. Potassium is found in generous quantities in bananas, oranges, avocados, spinach, and sweet potatoes. Magnesium lives in almonds, dark chocolate with a high cocoa percentage, whole grains, and beans. Both minerals require adequate hydration to function correctly. Water is not simply a vehicle for them, it is the medium in which their electrical work takes place. A warm Epsom salt bath before sleep delivers magnesium transdermally, absorbing through the skin to relax muscle tissue and reduce nighttime cramping. It is one of the most underused and most effective tools available for this specific problem, and it requires nothing more than 20 minutes and a bathtub. Your legs have been trying to tell you something, perhaps for months, perhaps for longer than that. The heaviness you dismissed as tiredness, the cramp you blamed on sleeping wrong, and the moment of hesitation at the bottom of the stairs you quietly hoped no one else noticed, those were not accidents, and they were not inevitable. They were messages. And now you have the language to read them. The path forward is not complicated. Move your legs every single day, even when movement feels difficult, especially when it does. Eat the foods that rebuild muscle and restore the minerals your body is losing. Drink more water than you think you need. Pay attention to your spine and your blood sugar, not as abstract medical concerns, but as direct inputs to how your legs feel and function tomorrow. Ask your doctor to check your B12 and your circulation if you have symptoms that match what you heard today. These are not dramatic interventions. They are the consistent, unglamorous daily choices that determine whether you are standing strong at 80 or steadying yourself against a wall. Here is what I want to know from you of the 5 reasons we covered today. Which one do you suspect has been silently affecting your own legs? Tell me in the comments, not because I am curious for curiosity's sake, but because naming it is the first step to changing it. Your answer might also be exactly what someone else reading those comments needed to see. If you want more of this, more research translated into language your body can actually use, and more of the hidden connections between what you feel and what is actually happening inside you, subscribe. Every week we go deeper into exactly what your body is trying to tell you and exactly what to do about it. And before you go, there is one more thing most people over 60 are eating every single morning that is quietly accelerating everything we talked about today. The next video reveals what it is and why stopping it might be the single fastest change you can make for your strength and your energy. That video is next, and once you know what it is, you cannot unknow it.